Good morning, Year 5. Welcome to Wednesday's English lesson. I hope you're all raring to go. Your teachers, Miss Bridges, Mrs Roberts, Miss Dawes and myself are so excited about your stories. They're reading really well, so we've got to keep going. And today we're going to write the setting of where your spacecraft ends up. So it had a problem yesterday and it had to land somewhere. So where's it going to land? We're going to describe that setting today. And we're going to use powerful adjectives to describe it this week. And an adjective is a word that describes a noun. So it can describe any aspect of it. It can describe what it looks like. So a shining star or a twinkling star. It can describe what something sounds like. Yes, so the whistling wind. It can describe what something feels like. So it might feel crumbly or rough. So you can use it to describe any of the senses. So we use them in our writing to make it much more interesting, and we practiced that last week. So what needs to happen in the next part of our story? Well, the next part of the story, as I've said, is paragraph 4, which is the setting. So if we look here at my plan, okay, I've done the first paragraph, which was the trigger one. Then I did about the journey, okay, where he set off into space. And yesterday I wrote about the first signs that there was a problem. Now, obviously, now he's had a problem, he's run out of petrol, something's got to happen, he's got to land somewhere. So I've got here, he crashes on the moon with a bump. And I've described it as empty, dusty expanse, and there's never-ending darkness. And then I've said it gets darker and darker, and then the batteries in his torch run out, so he's alone and worried. So I can talk about his feelings at the end of the paragraph. So that's what I've got to think about writing today, and I've got to still remember to link it to the end of yesterday's paragraph. So you must have your plan in front of you, and I suggest that you read through your story so far. Now, we've already written brilliantly descriptive settings about space last week, so see if you can find it, because you might be able to magpie or use big pieces of it in your writing today. And you want to think about what you want your reader to imagine at this point of the story. What is the place like where they've ended up, and how do you want them to feel? So you might want to do a little diagram to think about all the senses that you might need to describe to make the setting come alive. So what can your character see where he is? What can he hear? What can he smell? What emotions can he feel? What can he touch and what can he taste? Just like we did last week. So I've added a few things here. I've got bright twinkling stars, okay, a blanket of darkness, okay, so I can add all of those things into my writing. Do you remember these adjectives to describe the setting? Well, you could always leave those up in front of you and they might help you when you're writing. You might not be writing about the moon, which these described, but some of them will still relate to where you are in space, and you can add other ones in to make your planet or your star come alive. So the story so far, I'm not going to read through the whole thing. You can stop the video and read it for yourself. I just want to look at the last part. So I've got from behind him, billowing black smoke puffed out of the plane's exhaust. Terrified, a sinking feeling reached the boy's stomach as he realised the plane was out of fuel. That's where I've got to link up to. So we haven't crashed or landed anywhere. He's just realised he's out of fuel and that the plane is lurching. So I've started nose diving. He plunged downwards, landing on the moon with a bump. Adjusting his eyes to the never-ending darkness, the frightened boy took in his surroundings. Now I'm going to describe it. I've put a colon here because I'm going to start describing the setting. A large, dusty expanse stretched out for miles in front of him. Reaching to the ground, his fingers felt the cool, rocky terrain of the moon. Above him, he was grateful for the twinkling stars that were blinking at him, sharing small amounts of light, providing him comfort as the night sky covered him like a blanket. Worried and alone, he thought he would never get home. Suddenly, breaking the silence, a shuffling noise could be heard as a shadowy figure approached. So here at the end, I've put a hook to the next paragraph. I'm starting to introduce the person he's going to meet, but I haven't told the reader much about it yet. Have I got the things in from my plan? Well, have I crash landed on the moon? Yes, I've plunged downwards, landing on the moon with a bump. Does it get darker and darker? Well, I can see, okay, it's got never-ending darkness. And I've described how the boy's feeling. He's frightened. And I've got large, dusty expanse. So I've gone back and added in even more descriptive language. Okay. And then I've got down here how he's feeling once it gets really dark, worried and alone. And he's thinking he'd never get home. So have a read through. Are there any things here that you could magpie, and look back at the adjectives that you've got from last week and see what you can add on to your plan before you start writing. Don't forget, as you're writing, you must also include good openers. Okay, I've started with an ing one here, nose diving, got another ing one here, then I've got prepositional phrase, above him. Okay, and here I've got an ed one, worried and alone, and I've got an adverbial opening here, suddenly. So I've got a variety here. Do I have lots of adjectives? Yes, I do. I've got frightened boy. Okay. I've got never-ending darkness. I've got large dusty, and I've got twinkling stars and small amounts of light. Okay. And I've even got a simile, like a blanket. I've also got prepositions, as I've told you about as I've been going through. So, suddenly breaking the silence, a shuffling noise could be heard as a shadowy figure approached. So the last line of my setting paragraph is really important as a link to the next paragraph we're going to write. It's really important we don't tell them what the creature is that they're going to meet, but we set the scene. It's a shadowy figure that's approaching, and it's got an ellipse here, ... which means to be continued, and it leaves you on a cliffhanger. Oh, what's happening? So your reader really wants to read the next paragraph. Now it's time for you to write the next part of your story, telling your reader about your setting and using powerful adjectives to describe it. Take a moment to look at your plan and to look at the adjectives that I've got throughout this video, and look at your ones from last week and see what you can add to your plan. Don't forget to keep referring to it, okay? And maybe you could magpie some ideas from the things that I've talked about. Once you've done your writing, I want you to look at the checklist and check through. Does your writing make sense? Can you go through, identify and underline the adjectives, the describing words you've used? Then you can tick off your checklist. Powerful adjectives. What ones have you found? Can you give an example? Have you got a variety of sentence openers? I talked about the ing ones and the ed ones in my writing. Have you described all 5 senses? And did you have a personal target from Tuesday that you had to think about? And have you managed to nail that? And what's your next step? What are you going to have to work on tomorrow to make your writing even more super duper? So I'm going to leave you there. I look forward to reading your stories, as I'm sure your teachers do. Go wow us. Speak to you tomorrow. Bye.